大家好. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be learning Chinese characters, specifically some of the ones you will learn first for like HSK level 1. So we have this book that we're going to be basing our study off of just because it is really simple and straightforward. It teaches you kind of the basics of what you need to know on radicals and also shows you stroke order of the HSK1 characters. So we'll be using this as our base for study, but there's also different resources that I can share with you in this video that will help as well. So this is kind of what a basic page layout might look like. You've got your characters right here, and it will show you the stroke order. You can do some practice. It will also show other common words that the character is in, and then it's got pages and pages. And then also at the end, it has exercises to help practice and put things into application. So this is one resource we will use. Like I said, there's some others that I'll show you as well. And then this is like an example of a homework sheet you might get to do from this book. But yeah, let's jump into the video, look at some other resources, and have fun studying. All right, welcome to your lesson on Chinese radicals. Chinese radicals are the building blocks of Chinese characters, so we're going to talk a little bit about them to help you understand better how to study Chinese characters in general. Thankfully, Chinese characters are made up of similar patterned components called radicals. Now, in total, there are 214 Chinese radicals that make up different characters. Sometimes you can have one radical by itself. Sometimes you can have multiple radicals within a character. That is the difference between integral characters, which means that character itself stands alone and cannot be broken down any further, and then compound characters, which are characters that are made up of two or more components. So when you break characters down in this way by radicals, it can give you hints to either the sound that you must use to pronounce the character or the meaning. And it will just depend on which character you're studying. The main tips here to keep in mind are to familiarize yourself with Chinese radicals and recognize them when you're analyzing the characters that you're studying. That way you can make connections in your brain and piece them together, kind of like a puzzle, rather than starting from scratch at each character. There are lists of all of the Chinese radicals that you can use to study. You don't necessarily absolutely have to memorize them all at once. That would be a little bit overwhelming, but you can use the lists to at least get familiar with what they look like, what they mean, and then as you're learning different characters, you will be able to recognize them just like that, and it will help you tremendously in studying, especially the more complicated characters. So books like this have some tips for cracking Chinese characters, specifically for the 4 levels of HSK. And then it has a list of the 214 Chinese radicals just for your reference. This will help you tremendously. But now let's look at a couple examples of how to break down a character and identify certain radicals in them. All right, so this is the character we will start with to analyze. We're going to break it down by the radicals. So this character has 3 radicals total. This first one up top, you can see, I will highlight it in yellow so it's differentiated between the others. It means vegetable, so it's pronounced sao, which gives us a hint to the meaning of this whole entire character. The second radical is this one right here in the middle that I'm going to highlight in pink, and it means claw, and it's pronounced jiao, so it gives us another hint to the meaning of what this character is. And then for our final radical in this character is the one down here I'm going to highlight in green, and it is pronounced mu and means tree. So you can see it's kind of shaped like a tree. You've got the trunk right here, maybe some branches and some leaves hanging down. So all 3 of these radicals, as you can see, indicate a hint towards the pronunciation of the character and or the meaning. So we have right here this one that means vegetable, this one that means claw, and then this one that means tree. And the whole meaning of the character is dish or greens. So you can think plants. For the claw, you can think that someone has reached to the plant to harvest whatever is growing on it. And then this one up here, of course, means vegetable. So it's like you're harvesting the plant for food to make a dish, and it's pronounced sai. All right, and this character, which is pronounced I and means love or to love, we're going to break it down. It also has 3 radicals. So this first one on top, you'll actually recognize from the previous character. It is the radical for claw, or in this case, it could also mean paw. And then the radical right here in the middle, which kind of looks like a top, is the radical that means cover. And then this radical down here that I'm highlighting in green means friend. So putting all three of these radicals together and their meaning, you could think of this character to love as the paw covering and protecting a friend. So you can see how once you break down a character and analyze it, you get the radicals, you start to recognize them. You can either remember the sound that the character is pronounced as, or you can memorize the meanings of it. And it just helps a lot rather than trying to memorize every single specific character stroke and meaning. So just for practice, as you continue to learn new characters, analyze each one, make stories, try to find different ways to learn them, and just have fun with it. Okay, so the way this book is laid out is it will give you a brief introduction on some tips for learning Mandarin Chinese characters, which we've already talked about, so we don't have to do that. But it starts out with having you write and learn the numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So all the numbers are here. It gives you the character, what it looks like. It gives you the pinyin right here on how to pronounce it. And then it will give you the English meaning. Then on this side it has different common words that utilize this character. And in these gray boxes, it will show you which radical it contains. And then it has like some practice grids. It will show you the stroke orders, like 1 and then 2. So you can practice each character in that way. And then it will give you exercise sets. And this helps you to put your writing into practice, making sentences, filling in the blanks, answering questions. But anyway, since that is more homework type thing, we won't go through all of that. What I really want to talk about right now is stroke orders. So there are 6 tips for the stroke order in Chinese characters. They're just general. Sometimes Chinese characters, you'll just have to look up each specific one and learn the stroke order. But in general, these rules are good to follow. So the first one is top to bottom, which for an example character could look like this. Starting at the top. Sorry, that's really crooked. As you can see here, we started at the top with that stroke and went all the way down to the bottom. All right, the second rule is always going left to right, or when we write characters. So starting on the left side, working our way in. So we went that way. The third rule is to do horizontal strokes first and then vertical ones, which would mean doing horizontal, 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 and then a vertical stroke. Now for diagonals, we're going to start at the right side and work our way left. That will be first, and then we go from the left to the right. Rule number 5, in vertically symmetrical characters, the center always comes first. So that might look like doing that stroke and then the strokes on either side. And then finally for the last rule, rule number 6, we're going to always move from the outside to the inside and close the frames last. And that will make more sense once you see the drawing of it. So it's like the boxed type characters. So we're doing the frame portion first. Then we move on to what's inside. Remember those horizontal strokes before the vertical ones. We closed that first box right there. And now we're closing the bigger box. Yeah, so those are just the general rules for stroke order. Like I said, it's always best to look up each specific character when you're learning it. I will provide a link to Chinese dictionary online that you can go, and it will show you the stroke order for each one, and that will be really helpful as you're learning. All right, circling back around. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully it was beneficial in some way. Anyway, make sure to like and subscribe if you wish, and we will see you guys in the next one. 再见.